Okay, today we're going to talk about doing long division on polynomial functions. Please make sure that you take out a sheet of loose leaf paper if you chose not to print out these notes. So the first thing we need to go over is remember long division. When you were in elementary school, the first thing that you would do is look at the first number here, 8, and then you would say 4 times what gives you 8, a number without going over. You would multiply 4 times 2, you would get this 8, you would subtract, you would bring down the next term. Then you would look and say to yourself, okay, 4 times what gives me 7 without going over? You would pick 1, you would multiply here, you would subtract, and then you would bring down the next term here. We're basically going to apply that same concept to polynomials. So with polynomial functions, it's very similar. You're always trying to multiply to get the leading term that remains. So for the first example here, we're going to look, and you're going to look at the first term here and this term here. And you're going to say x times what gives me 6x to the third. Hopefully you pick 6x squared. Now, just like before, when you did simple long division, we're going to multiply. 6x squared times x gives me 6x to the third. 6x squared times negative 2 gives me negative 12x squared. Now I'm going to subtract. When I subtract, I like to keep the top, change the subtraction to addition, and change the signs after. So now when we subtract, 6x third plus negative 6x third is 0. Negative 19 plus 12 is negative 7x squared. And we're going to pull down the next term. Now I'm going to focus on this with the x. So x times what gives me negative 7x squared. Hopefully you pick negative 7x. Once again, we're going to multiply this times both of these. So negative 7x times x is negative 7x squared. Negative 7x times 2 is positive 14x. And my mistake, I forgot to pull down this 16x here. Now, once again, we're going to subtract. I personally like to keep the top, change the subtraction to addition, and change everything after. Negative 7 plus 7 is 0. 16 plus negative 14 is 2x. Carry down the next term. This becomes negative 4. Once again, we're going to look at this first term here and this term here. So x times what gives me 2x. Hopefully you pick 2. Now when I multiply, 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And when I go to subtract, again, I always keep change. 2 plus negative 2 is 0, and negative 4 plus 4 is 0. So when I divide, my answer here is that top, which is 6x squared minus 7x plus 2. If we look at the second example, again, I always want my first terms to cancel. So a times what gives me 6a to the third. Hopefully you pick 6a squared. 6a squared times a is 6a to the third. 6a squared times negative 8 is negative 48a squared. We're going to subtract. Again, I always keep change. Now when I subtract, 6a to the third plus negative 6a is 0. Negative 41 plus 48 is 7a squared. Carry down your next term, minus 55a. Again, I want the first terms to cancel. So a times what gives me 7a squared. Hopefully you come up with 7a. 7a times a is 7a squared. 7a times negative 8 is negative 56a. We're going to subtract. 7a squared plus negative 7a squared is 0. 55 plus 56, negative 55 plus 56 is 1a. Carry down your next term. negative 8. Again, we're going to say a times what gives me a. Hopefully you pick 1. If I multiply that 1 times a, I get a. 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. I'm going to subtract, keep change, and here I have 0, so my remainder is 0. So I end up with 6a squared plus 7a plus 1. That is my answer when I divide. Next example. Again, we always focus on the first terms. So y times what gives me y to the third? Y squared. If I multiply y to the third, y squared times negative 2 is negative 2y squared. We're going to subtract. I always keep change. Y to the third plus negative y to the third is 0. 4y squared plus 2y squared is 6y squared. Carry down your next term. Again, I focus on the first terms, so y times what gives me 6y squared? 6y. Multiply 6y squared minus 12y. We're going to subtract. Again, I like to keep change. So 6y squared minus 6y squared is 0. Negative 5 plus 12 is 7. Carry down the next term. And again, you're going to focus on the first terms. Y times what gives me 7y? Hopefully you pick 7. 7 times y is 7y. 7 times 2 is negative 14. When I go to subtract, again, I keep change. 7 minus 7 is 0. Negative 14 plus 14 is 0. So my answer here is y squared plus 6y plus 7. Next example. Again, focus on the first terms. X times what gives me 10x to the third? Hopefully you said 10x squared. Multiply. This becomes 10x to the third plus 60x squared. I'm going to subtract. I like to keep change. 10 plus negative 10 is 0. 59 plus negative 60 is negative 1. Carry down your next term. X times what gives me negative 1x squared? Negative 1x. We're going to multiply negative 1x squared, negative 6x. We're going to subtract. Again, I like to keep change. So negative 1 plus 1 is nothing. Negative 12 plus 6 is negative 6x. Carry down your next term. And again, looking at the first terms, x times what gives me negative 6x? Negative 6. Multiply, negative 6x, and then negative 36. We're going to subtract. I keep change. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. Negative 36 plus 36 is 0. So my remainder here is 0. So my answer is 10x squared minus 1x minus 6. Last example. N times what gives me 9n to the third? Hopefully you pick 9n squared. Now I'm going to multiply 9n to the third. 9 times negative 5 is negative 45n squared. We're going to subtract. I keep change when I'm subtracting. 9 plus negative 9 is nothing. Negative 36 plus 45 is 9n squared. Carry down the next term. Again, focus on those first terms. N times what gives me 9n squared? Hopefully you pick 9n. 9n times n is 9n squared. 9n times negative 5 is negative 45n. We're going to subtract. 9 plus negative 9 is nothing. Negative 39 plus 45 is 6. Carry down the next term. Again, focus on those first. N times what gives me 6n? 6 times n is 6n. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. Now when I go to subtract, again, I keep change. So now here, 6n plus negative 6n is 0. Negative 36 plus 30 is negative 6. So in this case, you get a preview of tomorrow's lesson, because since I have negative 6 left over, that's a remainder. So technically here, my answer is 9n squared plus 9n plus 6. And then because the remainder is negative 6, and we will do a video on this tomorrow, we write it as negative 6 over n minus 5. Don't worry about this part yet, because that is tomorrow's lesson. Please make sure that you write down any questions that you may have and ask me next time you see me, or send me an email.